All right, so you've sent us some really interesting papers, and we are going to deep dive into those today. They're all about multimodal large language models, and specifically focusing on a model called InternVL. And looks like you're particularly interested in the updated version, InternVL 2.5.
Yeah, it seems like you really want to understand how it compares to other models out there, both those other open source ones and the ones that are being developed by these big companies.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So what is InternVL 2.5, and why is it such a big deal in this world of MLLMs? I think we can skip the whole AI 101 thing, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think our listeners are pretty familiar with that.
All right, so, what is it? What makes it special?
Well, it's an open source model. It was developed by a team of researchers, and they're doing some really innovative work. One of the things that makes it so interesting is that it can process information from both text and visual sources. So it's not just text, it can also handle images and videos.
Okay, now I am seeing some terms in these papers that are pretty technical, like dynamic high-resolution training and progressive scaling strategy. What do those mean?
Yeah, those are some of the key innovations they've introduced. Let's start with the dynamic high-resolution training.
Okay.
So imagine you're trying to understand a detailed image, right? If you only get like a blurry glimpse, you're going to miss a lot of important information. And it's the same for AI models. So by training InternVL 2.5 with increasingly higher resolution images and videos, the researchers have basically enabled it to capture more detail and understand how those visual elements work together, much better than if they hadn't done that.
Oh, okay, I see. So it's like they've given the model like a superpowered magnifying glass to examine these images and videos.
Exactly. Yeah. And when you combine that with the progressive scaling strategy, you get a model that's not only powerful, but also really efficient. You can kind of think of it like building a skyscraper. Instead of starting with this huge foundation and building up from there, they're kind of adding floors gradually, integrating these larger language models into the system in a way that doesn't require like a massive increase in computational resources.
So they're scaling up its intelligence without making it this like giant computational monster.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. Okay, there's this other term I keep seeing too. Data packing strategy. What's that all about?
Oh, yeah. That's another really cool technique that they've used to make the model more efficient. Essentially, they figured out how to pack more information into each training cycle, especially when they're dealing with like long sequences of data or data sets that have a ton of images. This lets the model learn from a lot more information without significantly increasing the training time.
So they're packing a suitcase more efficiently. They're making sure they can fit everything they need without wasting space.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And, they're also using these sophisticated techniques like data augmentation and loss reweighting to make the model more robust and able to handle these real-world situations where, the data might not be perfect.
So we've got this model that can process these high-resolution images and videos. It can scale up efficiently and handle tons of data. But how do we know if it actually performs as well as we think it will? I mean, that's where the benchmarks come in, right?
Yeah, for sure. And that's where things start to get really exciting because they've tested InternVL 2.5 on a bunch of different tasks. Things like basic multimodal reasoning to some really complex real-world comprehension challenges. And they even compared it to some of the leading industry models like GPT-4o and Claude 3.5 Sonnet.
Wow. Okay, hold on. What kind of tasks are we talking about here? Give me some examples of these benchmarks and what they tell us about what InternVL 2.5 can actually do.
Okay, so one area where InternVL 2.5 really stands out is multimodal reasoning and mathematics. They used benchmarks like MMMU. MMMU tests a model's ability to solve problems that are like college level across a bunch of different subjects.
Whoa, so they're giving this AI college exams.
Basically, yeah. And it's really interesting because they found that it wasn't always enough to just ask the model to give a direct answer. They actually found that when they use something called chain of thought prompting, which basically encourages the model to break the problem down and think step by step, its performance got way better.
It's like giving it a piece of scratch paper to work out the problem instead of expecting it to just know the answer right off the bat.
Exactly, yeah. And by looking at the model's reasoning process, the researchers could actually figure out, what it was good at and what it needed more training on.
So it's not just about getting a score, it's about understanding how the model thinks and solves problems.
Exactly.
Fascinating. Okay, so we've learned a lot about this model, but I'm sure there's even more to uncover. So let's dig into some of these other benchmarks when we come back for the next part of our deep dive. We'll explore how InternVL 2.5 does in tasks that involve document understanding, multi-image comprehension, and even real-world scenarios. So stay tuned for that.
Okay, so let's move on to another benchmark called Text VQA. This one focuses on the model's ability to do visual reasoning based on text that's like embedded within images.
So basically, it has to read and understand the text in an image to answer a question. Like if you showed it a picture of a store with a sign that says open 24 hours, could it tell you when the store's open?
Exactly, and Intern VL 2.5 does surprisingly well on Text VQA. It shows that it can connect text and visual information really effectively. And this is really helpful for things like document understanding, where you need to be able to get information from images that have both text and graphics.
Right, so it could be used to like digitize a bunch of old invoices or contracts or something like that.
Exactly, yeah. And there's another benchmark called DocVQA that specifically looks at this. So in DocVQA, the model gets an image of a document, and then it's asked a bunch of questions that require it to understand, the layout, the text, and how the different elements are related to each other.
And I'm seeing some really good scores for Intern VL 2.5 in this benchmark. It looks like it's really good at tasks that need a deep understanding of both visual and textual information.
It is, yeah. You mentioned before that real-world comprehension was an area where Intern VL 2.5 could improve. There's a benchmark called Wild Vision that really highlights this. It uses questions that real people asked about images, and the model is judged not just on whether it gets the answer right, but also on whether its answers would actually satisfy a human.
So it's not just about being right. It's about sounding natural and helpful like you're talking to another person.
Exactly. And while Intern VL 2.5 can give concise and accurate answers a lot of the time, it does struggle with that kind of human touch sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It's one thing to teach a model to understand facts and logic, but to get it to really understand context and the nuances of human communication, that's way more complex.
Yeah, definitely. And this is kind of a recurring theme across all these benchmarks. Intern VL 2.5 is really good at things like concrete reasoning and information extraction. But it does fall behind some of those commercial models when it comes to things like understanding context and those more subtle aspects of human-like interaction. It's super smart, but it's still learning how to use that intelligence in a way that really mirrors how humans think. You mentioned hallucinations earlier. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Like, how does Intern VL 2.5 deal with that challenge? Are there benchmarks that specifically look at how likely it is to just make stuff up? Yeah, that's a good question. Hallucinations are a big problem for all large language models, especially when you're dealing with both text and images, because that just creates more opportunities for things to go wrong. Basically, hallucinations happen when the model generates information that's just plain wrong, or it doesn't make sense. And this can be because of biases in the training data, or because the model just doesn't really understand the real world.
So it's saying something that sounds believable, but it's actually completely made up.
Yeah. Exactly. The good news is that Intern VL 2.5 is a lot better at avoiding hallucinations than older models. One of the benchmarks they use to measure this is called Hallucination Bench. It uses yes-no questions to test the model's reasoning.
How does that work?
So for example, let's say the model is shown a picture of a cat sitting on a windowsill. Hallucination Bench might ask, is the cat sitting on a fence? This forces the model to really look at the image and not just make assumptions or make stuff up.
That's clever. It's like a logic puzzle to see if the model is going to say something that's not true.
Right. And the results are actually really encouraging. Even when it's relatively small, Intern VL 2.5 is way less likely to hallucinate than previous models. This shows that the training methods and data filtering techniques they used are working. They also used a benchmark called MMHAL Bench. That one is specifically designed to look at multimodal hallucinations. So it tests whether the model can avoid making things up when it's doing things like image captioning, visual question answering, and searching for images based on text.
So it sounds like hallucinations are still a problem, but Intern VL 2.5 is getting a lot better at dealing with them.
Yeah, definitely. But there's another important area of evaluation we haven't talked about yet. These comprehensive multimodal benchmarks like Bench MMVET and MMStar, they test the model on a whole bunch of different tasks, so they give you a really good overall picture of what the model is good at and where it needs to improve. This is where you can really see how much Intern VL 2.5 can do. For example, in the MME benchmark, it covers tasks like visual question answering, image captioning, and referring expression comprehension. And Intern VL 2.5 gets some pretty amazing results. This shows that it can handle a lot of different multimodal challenges.
So these comprehensive benchmarks are really putting it to the test.
They are.
Okay, so we've really gotten into the nitty-gritty of how Intern VL 2.5 performs. We've talked about its strengths and weaknesses on all these benchmarks, but before we finish up with our analysis, I think it's important to step back and think about the bigger picture. What is the fact that there's this powerful open source MLM like intern VL 2.5 out there. What does that mean for the future of AI?
That's a great point. We've been focusing on the technical details, but this research actually has much bigger implications for the whole field of AI. The fact that this really powerful and sophisticated MLLM is open source, that's a huge deal. It could really change the way AI technology is developed and used.
So instead of these models being kept secret by big companies, they're available for anyone to use and improve on.
Exactly. Yeah. This kind of open access encourages collaboration and innovation. It could lead to all sorts of new breakthroughs that we can't even imagine right now.
So someone with a great idea, even if they don't have a ton of money, they could use this open source tool to solve real problems. In healthcare education, environmental science, the possibilities are endless.
Absolutely.
This is really exciting. It feels like we're entering a new era where the power of AI isn't just for a select few, but it's accessible to anyone who wants to use it. But open source projects can sometimes struggle to get the resources and support they need. How is the team behind Intern VL 2.5 dealing with that?
Yeah, that's a really important point. And the research papers talk a lot about how important community involvement is. They're really encouraging people to contribute, whether they're developers, data scientists, or just people who are excited about MLLMs. It's not just about making the code available. It's about building a community around this technology.
So it's like an invitation to be part of a movement, to work together to push the limits of open source AI.
Exactly, and to support this community. They're not just releasing the code, they're also providing all this documentation, training scripts, even pre-trained models that people can use as a starting point for their own projects.
Wow, so we have this really powerful open source MLLM, this passionate community, and a commitment to sharing knowledge and working together. What do you think this all means for the future of AI?
I think we're going to see a lot more innovation happening a lot faster as more people have access to these technologies and can contribute their own ideas and expertise. We're going to see new applications popping up in fields we haven't even thought of yet.
It's like we're unleashing this wave of creativity and problem solving.
Yeah, and as these open source models keep getting better, we'll see them being used in everyday tools and services. It's going to change how we interact with technology and the world around us.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So from helping us understand complicated documents, to analyzing medical images, to creating personalized learning experiences, it sounds like we're on the edge of a whole new era powered by open and accessible AI.
And the best part is that with open source projects like Intern VL 2.5 leading the way, we can help make sure that this technology is developed and used ethically and responsibly so that everyone benefits.
That's a great point.
Oh.
Okay, so that was our deep dive into the world of multimodal large language models. We looked at the amazing features of Intern VL 2.5. Broke down its performance on all these different benchmarks, and talk about what it could mean for the future of open source AI. I'm so excited to see what happens with this technology in the next few years.
Me too. It's amazing to think that this is just the beginning. Intern VL 2.5 is a snapshot of where we are now. It shows how far AI research has come.
And with the open source community pushing things forward, who knows what amazing discoveries are just around the corner.
That's what's so exciting about it. The future of AI is open, collaborative, and full of potential. So as you keep learning about MLLMs, remember this. You're not just a spectator. You can help shape this technology and how it affects the world. So stay curious, stay engaged, and keep asking questions. You never know, you might be the one to make the next big breakthrough in open source AI.
It's easy to get caught up in all the technical stuff when we're talking about AI, but I think it's important to take a step back and look at the bigger picture. We've talked about all the cool features of Intern VL 2.5 and how well it performs on these benchmarks. But what does it really mean for the future of AI, that we have this powerful open source MLM out there?
Yeah, I think it's a sign that things are really changing. Making this technology open source, it's like democratizing access to these powerful AI tools. Now a much wider community of developers and researchers, even just people who are interested in AI, they can all experiment with this technology and build on it.
So it's not just locked away in some big tech company's lab anymore.
Exactly. It's out in the open for everyone.
And that kind of open access, that has to lead to more innovation, right?
Oh, absolutely. I think we'll see breakthroughs that we can't even imagine right now.
Yeah, because someone with a great idea, even if they don't have a lot of money, they can use this open source tool to try and solve real problems, like in healthcare or education or environmental science.
Yeah, the possibilities are pretty much endless.
It's exciting. We're entering this new era where AI isn't just for a select few, but it's for anyone who wants to use it. But let's be honest, open source projects often face challenges, like getting enough resources and support. How is the team behind InternVL 2.5 handling that?
Right. That's a really important point, and the research papers really stress the importance of community involvement. They want people to contribute code, data science, expertise, anything really. It's not just about having the code available. It's about creating this whole community around the technology.
So it's like an invitation to join this movement, to work together to see what's possible with open source AI.
Yeah, exactly. And they're not just releasing the code to support this community. They're providing documentation training scripts, even pre-trained models that people can use to get started.
So we've got this powerful open source MLLM, a passionate community, and this commitment to sharing knowledge and collaborating. What kind of impact do you think this will have on AI in the next few years?
I think we'll see the pace of innovation really pick up. As more people can access these technologies and share their ideas and expertise, we'll see new applications popping up in areas we haven't even thought of yet.
It's like we're opening up this floodgate of creativity and problem solving.
Yeah, and as these open source models get better, we'll start to see them integrated into the tools and services we use every day. It'll change how we interact with technology and with the world around us.
That's amazing. From helping us understand complicated documents to analyzing medical images to creating personalized learning experiences, it feels like we're on the verge of a whole new era.
And the best part is, with projects like InternVL 2.5 leading the way, we can help make sure that AI is developed and used in a way that benefits everyone.
Right. It's not just about the technology itself.
Sure.
It's about how we use it.
Exactly.
Well, I think that's a great place to wrap things up. We've done a deep dive into multimodal large language models, explored the amazing capabilities of InternVL 2.5, and talked about its potential impact on the future of open source AI. I'm really excited to see what happens next in this field.
Me too. It's been a fascinating journey.
And as always, we want to thank you for sending us these papers and for listening to our deep dive. We hope you found it informative and thought-provoking. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.